Hey y'all, it's Susan with Susan's Country Living. Welcome to my kitchen. You can guess what I'm going to be doing today. Yes, we've been picking cucumbers all week, and yesterday was my last work day of school, so now I'm on summer break and it's time to make the pickles. So I'm making a recipe from a friend of mine, and it's from her Aunt Irene. She shared it with me, and I make her pickles to give to her, but I also make them to sell at the farmer's market where I'm a vendor. So that's why the hair is back and everything. Anytime I'm making something for a farmer's market, I try to keep things, as clean as possible, and so that things don't get in the pickles that shouldn't be there. So we're going to start with some nice fresh cucumbers, different sizes. You could do these whole. I like to do spears. I find that most people at the market, that's what they want, is spears. So you'll need some cucumbers, and I grow organically, and I have some organic onions I picked up at Walmart yesterday. They do have an organic section. Then I have some jalapenos that I grow, and I have some bell pepper. You could use green bell pepper. These are ones I grew, and it had a little spot over here, so I just cut them off. So I'm going to use these nice and sweet and add some flavor. And you're going to need some 5% vinegar, some water. I like to use kosher salt when I'm canning. I like the way that it works for me there. I have some dill weed that I purchased. By this time of the year, the dill is too hot for it. I'm here on the Texas Gulf Coast prairie, and so I had purchased some, and I shrink wrapped it and froze it. So I'm going to use that, and then I'm going to also be adding some dill seeds to it because I don't have the seed heads from that dill. It hadn't produced any seed heads yet. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Oh, and you also need some garlic. Now this recipe calls for every quart of for 4 quarts of water, you add 2 quarts of the 5% vinegar. So I have that going back here on the stove. I like to use my glass coffee pot or something I can pour from. It's just much easier than ladling. So I have that going back there. If you're wanting to cut this into like fourths, I use for every 1 quart of water, it's 2 cups of vinegar and 1/2 cup of salt. So it's basically a 1 to 2 for your water and your vinegar. So I'm going to get started. It calls for slicing the garlic. So I picked this up. I have a big mandolin, and last year I kind of almost cut the corner of my thumb off. And so I thought, well, I'm going to get me a little mandolin for things like garlic, and when I make my cowboy candy for jalapenos. You can do, radishes, anything small. This was like $5 at Walmart. You can set it to 2 different settings. You can lock it to where that's what I like. It's locked there, so you can't cut yourself. And then you just set your little thing and off you go. So I'm going to enjoy using this. I don't have to worry about cutting my fingers off. You could even use it for cucumbers if it fits down in there. When I make my bread and butter pickles, that's what I did. I cut my thumb on that. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to get started, and I'm going to, let me get my scrap bucket for the chickens or the compost pile. It calls for like a couple of slices of onion in each jar if you're doing a quart. This does 12 quarts, the whole recipe does. I'm using the largemouth pints. I feel that these sell better at the market for me, and they're easier to get the cucumbers in and out. So I'll put a slice of onion, a couple of slices of the bell pepper, some slices of garlic. I'll put a little sprig of my dill in there, and then probably about a teaspoon of dill seed in there. So I'm going to get started getting all this stuff prepped. I'll show you how I cut my cucumbers. I'll show you how this thing works. And we'll get some pickles made. I've got my water already going. These went through the dishwasher last night. They are clean and sterile. They're upside down over there. By the time I add the pickles, if I heated them, it would be cold. The jars would be cold. I'm bringing my brine to a boil back here on the stove. But once you pour it over those cucumbers, I've never had a jar break on me. I do water bath these, so we'll be doing that also later. So let me get started getting everything prepared. So we're going to try out this little mandolin here, and I'm going to set it on 1. There's 2 little settings here, 1 and 2, and you can see how it moves it up and down. I'm going to put my garlic right in there. Put a couple of pieces, maybe even 3. Oh, let's just do 2. I'm going to just hold it over the bowl. It's got this little guard, and we're just going to push down. And it's cutting it into really fine slivers. There, I think I would like it a little bigger. So we're going to put it on 2. Yes, I like that a little bit better. It's a thicker. That's more like what I want. I'm just going to go ahead and do the rest of these up here. Just pop those in there. Certainly much quicker than doing it by hand for me. Some people are really skilled. Oh, and it did. It got it all. Awesome. So that did me 5 cloves is what I did there. So I'll just take like a pinch, because it called for 1 clove for every quart jar. So I don't want to put too much garlic, unless you just like garlic a lot. I'm just going to set this aside and then start my cucumbers. I'm just going to slice the onions across into like a round ring of it, but I'm going to leave them together because I'm going to be putting that down in the jar. Harsh, but so what I've done is I put a slice of onion. I did half a teaspoon of the dill seed in there. I put some slivers of garlic in there. I have some of the dill weed. I'm going to put a couple of slices of some bell pepper in there, or a big slice and kind of cut it in half maybe. I'm going to put that down in there, kind of stand that up a little bit whenever I put the pickles in, so it kind of shows. And some of these, I'm going to put a slice of jalapeno. I'm going to cut these with a knife a little thicker. And I'm probably just going to put one of these in a few and put it where I can see the jalapeno, so I know that that is one with jalapeno, and some I will do without. I do have a Fulja jalapeno. It's not spicy, but it has the flavor. So I'm going to be trying that also, and maybe some of ours, to see how that does. So we're going to do 3 of these with jalapeno. I'll wash my knife off from that jalapeno. Okay, so now we're ready to get started with putting our pickles, our cucumbers in. So I'm going to start, I usually cut off a little bit of both ends and just kind of get my size as far as what size it needs to be, so that I have about a 1/2 inch headspace there. So I need to cut off some of this. So I'm going to cut off the bigger end. And these usually go into a salad. I grab another bowl. And I save any of these big chunks for like a cucumber tomato salad. So we've been picking tomatoes too. So when I cut my cucumber, I lay it to where it's flat. There's a side that's kind of flat. I lay that down and I cut it in half. You can see the nice and full. And I cut it again and cut it in half again so that I have my spears, and we're going to see if these fit. Yeah, see there, I might cut just a little more off that tip end. And then I use one of these as a guide. So we're going to cut that off. Yeah, that's good. I like it to be where the pickle will be totally submerged. And then I start putting them in, standing up. I like it to be pretty, to see the ingredients in there. I'm going to keep one out as a guide and just keep cutting cucumbers and filling them into my jars. Okay, so there's one that's ready to go. You can see all the ingredients in there, and we're just going to set it over here to the side, put a towel over them, and just keep filling. Okay, I have 5 jars done. I'm going to go ahead and fill them. My vinegar, water, and salt brine is boiling. I cut that off, and I'm going to fill my jars. Leave about 1/4 to 1/2 inch headspace. I let them sit there a little while so that bubbles can come up and the brine can get between the pickles because they are packed rather tightly in there. The bubbles out so that they will process. Like there's a bubble there. So try to release it. You're not supposed to use metal, but I'm going to. It just does so much better for me, and I'm just very gentle. There's one down there. Let pepper. There's one down there on the pepper. Here we go. And that one looks good. These jars over a little bit. A little more liquid just to cover. Okay, now I'm ready to wipe and get them sealed and into our water bath canner. So I had my lids back here in the hot water. You grab a paper towel. Water bath is going. Sometimes I use a steam canner, but when I do pickles like this, I prefer to use a water bath. Just want to make sure that there's no any material on the lip of the jar. Those of you that are new to canning, this is a very necessary step. If you use something that is very sugary like jelly or jams, that tends to get on the edge of the jar, or your canning meats, the fat, you would need to use vinegar. I think I'm going to add a little more liquid to that one. Alright. Now this recipe said to just seal. I don't do that. I always will water bath, steam can, or pressure can. I don't ever just let it seal. I'm going to go ahead and get my lids on. Okay. I've got extra lids in there. We'll just set that aside. I've never had any problem with them going soggy on me. even after a year and a half, even 2 years. And then we're going to finger tighten. Don't want to go too tight or it will cause your lid to buckle. Go 10 minutes. Want to make sure that the water comes up at least 2 inches, covering the jars. Okay, 10 minutes is up and we are ready to remove them from the water bath canner. That on there and soak up that water that's on top, not pushing down. That's the recipe for Aunt Irene's Kosher Dill Pickles and how to use your garden bounty of cucumbers to make them, or go to your farmer's market and grab some homegrown cucumbers. Best to get organic if you can, and you can get these smaller sizes, about not even as big as your hand. These are the perfect size for making pickles. The seeds have not developed all the way yet, and they'll be nice and crispy for a long time in your pickles there. So yeah, I'm excited to try these. Let me recap the recipe for you, and I will also post it in the description below. So 4 quarts of water, 2 quarts of 5% vinegar, and 2 cups of canning salt or kosher salt for your brine, and then some onion, some bell pepper, some dill. I put some red bell pepper in there. This batch, I tasted the jalapeno. It was the one that was not hot. So this next batch, I'm going to put a hot jalapeno in there. So I'm interested to see how that's going to flavor. Even though it's not hot, it's got the jalapeno taste to it, which I love. So I hope you try these pickles. These need to sit 6 weeks for the flavors to really come through and develop. So it's hard. I know it's hard to resist, but let them go. Let them sit for 6 weeks, and then pop them open and try them. Bye, y'all.